So let's touch on a trifecta of female-led
Yeah,
thrillers with
yeah.
just
A lot of
weird, subversive, transgressive shit, right? So
right,
yes, two hardback manga. We talk about three movies of that nature, right?
right,
So I will kick things off with The Front Room, right? Which is written and directed. This is actually the feature film debut by Sam and Max Eggers,
right,
who are the brothers of Robert Eggers, right? Who
right, right.
who put out hit after hit, whether it's the Lighthouse or the Witch, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Northman Boy,
No, not man, boy,
Fox
not
and
man.
Northman, yeah.
Yeah.
And a show that I hope to see by year's end, even though the shit dropping theatrically in the States on Christmas, which means that we might get it on Boxing Day, but I'll make the effort if they're showing it. Nosferatu.
Right,
Yeah, yeah. Right? So, what is it about, right? This is technically a psychological horror film, right? I say technically, but I'll get to what I mean in a bit, right? So, this stars Brandy, right? Who we haven't seen
right,
or heard of in a long while, right? She plays Belinda. She has a white husband by the name of Norman, who's played by Andrew Burnap, right? And yeah, she's expecting the first child, and but she's also teaching at this high school, and she's just trying to get things together before the birth takes place, right? So through some circumstances, or I should say through unfortunate circumstances, Norman, as in Belinda's husband, his dad passed away, right? So they find out after the funeral that basically there was this agreement, right? That right after he died, his son, as in Norman, have to take care of his stepmother, who is called Solange. I thought it was pretty funny that her name is Solange. If you remember
right,
Solange Knowles, right? So I don't know. I don't know if
right.
it's a in joke because Brandy, Solange, R&B stars. I don't know, whatever, right? Who is played by Catherine Hunter, right? And the moment that you see her is established early on that she is just this creepy, weird ass, Bible thumping, and kind of a racist, right? Elderly woman, right? So yeah, they bring she into the house and she just being a pest, she being a pain in the ass, but she also just doing these weird, creepy stuff. So almost on some Rosemary's Baby kind of shit, right? Because yes, it involves Belinda's child, right? And even when the child is born, yes, there's still some dark, creepy stuff that's going on. And yeah, Belinda and Norman aren't really too sure what is going on, right? But it's some really dark, insidious stuff, right? And I'll stop there, right? So as I mentioned, Rosemary's Baby, right? You could tell that this is the show that the Eggers were drawing inspiration from, right? Even though that this is based off of a short story, right? Called The Front Room, right? In terms of there's a mother who is a mother to be, right? And but all of a sudden there's this old person, this weird, creepy old person who kind of watching she had and kind of hoping that she gives birth at a certain time, but you're not really sure what's going on, right? It may have to do with the devil, right? But in this case, from what I saw, there's absolutely no satanic stuff going on, right? But there's still some dark designs that's going on as far as Melinda's chat, right? But you think about it now, what this show will be remembered by, for better or for worse, is Catherine Hunter's performance, right?
Yeah,
Because this is what
I love them, what you call it, in
the tragedy of
Macbeth.
Macbeth, yeah,
Yeah,
like
great for that.
and as I bring up that, right?
I get nominated for
Um,
that. However, yeah,
yeah, what boy, what she did there with physical acting, right?
yeah,
She does the same thing here with this, right? So she actually has crutches, right? But the way how she moves with them, right? It's almost spider-like. That's the best way I
right,
can describe it. And
right.
when you see it for the first time, it's kind of funny, right? When you see it over and over, it's like this is some creepy shit though, but it works, right? So yeah, Catherine Hunter's performance is one that's gonna be remembered by years end, right? Here's the problem though. Two things. One, I could already see this show showing up in a lot of worst stuff
Okay.
lists. And I'll get to why in a bit, right? But secondly, when it comes to to Catherine Hunter herself, right? The unfortunate thing for me about this show, at least watching this film, right, is that there was so much room, right, to explore this aspect of because they do touch on it, right? And it's very fascinating, but it's expected, unfortunately, right? but it's there. You kind of know it was coming from the moment she is introduced into the story. Solange's character, right? Yeah, religion and organized
Right.
religion for one. Um, because it's established that Belinda more believes into she's more into traditional African beliefs, right? She touched
Right.
on
Right.
the
Right.
fact
Right.
that her parents were Haitian, right? So she's more going on, just the woman, just oh gosh, I think she mentions Nefertiti, right? But there's another African deity that's more associated with womanhood and childbirth, right? So she more leans towards that, right? But then you have this elderly white woman who's,
Right.
just again just touching on, the gospel. Like, it's you shouldn't give your child that name. You know what I mean? You should give it a more Christian like name and all that kind of stuff, right? So she is like really trying to like envelop Belinda with her beliefs, right? You see
Right.
that
Right.
that clashing, right? Which is great, right? Um Also, yeah, they hint on the fact that Homegirl as this large is kind of a racist too, because she
Right. Right.
mentions that she was her relatives were part of the clan and all that kind of stuff, right? So she goes into that as well, right? So but back to the second problem I have with the movie, right? This is a show that unfortunately leans too much into Catherine Hunter's performance to the
Okay.
point that it relies on that performance
You're right.
so much
You're
to
leaning on
drive
the
the
right.
story along.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's unfortunate. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
you want a greater performance from her, but you can't lean the whole thing on. Can't be on that. Yeah, I understand where you're coming
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
from.
yeah. So I understand it's not Rosemary's Baby. It's not Apartment 7A, which is the
Yeah. Right.
prequel, which I talked about on Six Reels Deep, right? It's not that, and I understand they're not trying to do that, right? In the case of it's this woman, this who's gonna give birth to the Antichrist, and it's this coven of witches who iron she down that. We're not doing that, right? But at the same time, they could have explored exactly why Solange was eyeing down Belinda so much, why she has all these dark designs on her baby and all this kind of things. They could have
Right.
explored all that, right? And they could have gotten more frightening moments, right? But instead, going back to the whole worst of stuff, right? You get what is fortunately and unfortunately, yeah, just a campy psychological film,
Right.
and it's one that kind of plays out more like a thriller than a horror, in my opinion, right? Which was a letdown for me, right? So it's an 8 to 4 release, right? So yes, you see some weird avant-garde-ish kind of stuff, and I won't lie, this visually, the avant-garde stuff work, right? There's some weird shit, right? But this is the way how it's filmed and put together, it works, right? But fortunately, they just sort of just there like, hey, look, some weird stuff, but they don't expound on it, they don't expand on it. It's just look some weird stuff for the sake of it just because, we want to do that, right? And because we brother known for doing that, right? So I feel
Right.
that's
Right.
why
Right.
they're there in the first place, right? But now, man, they could expand on those things even more. Really give us a sense of why we should fear the fact that this old woman, this weird woman, is in this house, right? But instead, it just relies so much on Catherine Hunter. See, just watching her, and she's so over the top in her performance, right?
Right. Yeah.
Bordering on camp, bordering on camp, even though it's not a campy movie, but her performance borders on camp. It's a perfect example. It's like the equivalent of like Faye Dunaway in Mommy Dearest, right?
Right. 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 Right.
The no wire hangers, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's leaning towards that. But just think about it like this old woman who is just annoying as hell, who does really terrible, well, I should say, it's like if you are a caregiver to an old person, this is the kind of shit that will give you nightmares, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
defecating on themselves, right? They call you ever so often to move them, and they just moaning and making noises and all these kind of things, right? But in the case with her, she doing like the tongue thing, the
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Tongues.
right?
Yeah.
She does all
Yeah.
that
Speaking
stuff,
in
right?
tongues.
Speaking
Yeah.
in
Nice.
tongues. Yeah,
Nice.
she does that, right?
Pentecostal. Pentecostal.
Yeah, 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 she does that, right? And yes, I get where they're going at with it, right? But ultimately, that's not scary. That's not scary because the
Right. Yeah.
story surrounding her performance is not scary enough at
Right.
all, right?
Right.
So I'm sorry. I just watched this. I was like, but honestly, I was watching this. I was just more laughing of it. I just more saw this as a dark comedy more than anything else
Right.
because of how over the top Catherine Hunter was, right? And just yeah, just the aspect of just raising this really annoying old person, right? It's played as dark comedy in my opinion, right? But
Right.
unfortunately, there was room for the horror part. There was room for more psychological part, stuff, and we just didn't get that, unfortunately, right? I guess the end could be treated as psychological, but like I'm sorry, like I just seen it right off the bat. I'm not even gonna spoil how it ends, but I was calling for that. I would just say with the more annoyance you get out of Solange's character, you will legit say, why don't just do this and done it? And just end the whole torment. Just do this
Right.
and it will all be done. And yeah, a character kinda does it, and I'm like, yeah, because I was saying that like an hour into the movie, like, yeah, just do this and be done with it. And
Right.
somebody does it, and it's like, all right, well, that's it. Okay, moving on, and that's what it is, right? So yeah, at the end of the day, really wanted to like this one, but unfortunately, it just relies way too much on Catherine Hunter, who, by the way, I think gives a great performance, right? But it's one of those performances where, yes, she gives her all into it, but because of how annoying her character is, it's one of those things where you praise the performance. You really like that she went all in it, right? But you just wish that she had better material instead of just I'm an old creepy white woman who just does stuff, all people stuff, and that's supposed to be what scary. No,
Yeah.
it's more funny to me, to be honest, right? But not
Right.
scary in my opinion, right? And Brandy was fine. You really
Right.
buy into as his mother to be who just going through a lot of stress. And yeah, Norman is the son, so the stepson pretty much. So you see how he plays out with this, right? But yeah, there was potential to give us like let me just say this could have been our generation's Rosemary's Baby, man. But unfortunately, they couldn't. They didn't even do that, right? It's a shame because it's from the brothers of Robert Eggers, right? And look at that man's catalog, right? So,
Right. Right. Right.
nah, man. Like I felt they could have come with that same kind of energy, man. But instead, it's just, hey, we have Catherine Hunter. She get nominated for an Oscar, so let me see what we could do
Yeah,
with her,
you know
and
what
that's it.
it just feel like when comedy movies is just they don't really write a script and they just rely on the comedy actors to do improv on camera. That what it sounded like.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you could even though like you could see bits of it and know that some of it was improv. You could tell.
Yeah.
Just if whether it's dialogue or whether it's an action or a movement, some of it did feel very improv, right? Like almost like, all right, Catherine, you do you,
Yeah.
we'll just film that shit, right? So that's that. But unfortunately, there was room for more psychological thrills, man, and more horrific stuff. But unfortunately, we didn't really get that there, which was a massive letdown for me, right? So yeah, for me, I'll give this a strong 2.5 out of 5. See it if you want to, but really the main reason to watch this is Catherine Hunter, right? But again,
Right.
it's one of those performances that you'll either love or hate. But I could see people putting this in the worst stuff because of how campy or bordering on camp, sorry, her
Yeah.
performance was. But I really think that she did a great job, just given the scant material that she was given, right? But yeah, I mean, her performance stands out, boy. But again, I will not be surprised if this movie shows up on our stuff because of how over the top that performance was, right? And I'll leave it at that. So yeah, from the front room now, let's touch on Strange Darling, right? So Ricardo, if
Sure.
you don't mind, let's want you to do a synopsis for this. But what I will say, just quick preamble, is that I've been hearing a lot about this movie
Yeah.
since it was released theatrically. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this did have a limited run in local theaters.
Right.
And
Right.
when I watched it, I was like, I could see why, I could see why, but I would, all right. So this last reference I'll make to, well, I'll just say two last references I'll make. Well, one of two last references I'll make to the front room. I more would have picture front room getting more, or getting a theatrical push locally because
Right.
of the audience reaction it would have gotten from it, right? But
Right.
yeah,
Right. Right.
after watching Strange Island, I was like, wait, this get released theatrically down here? All right, okay, that's kind of weird, but okay, whatever. But yeah, I was hearing a lot of things about it, and I'm a thoughts on it, right? But I'll leave those until you're done talking about it, right? But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. What was Strange Darling about?
Oh boy. I don't want to talk about it without spoiling it, but yeah, basically it's about this woman who well the story is not the story well I don't think I'm spoiling anything here, but the story is not told linearly. So it's piecing together what this woman having to be concerned with a serial killer and why the serial killer doing what they're doing, and you learn how to describe this. Way she having to go through you know how people have to go through horrors of the world itself and how to think about it like that. And that is it. I don't want to spoil anything else because like I had this movie spoiled for me.
Oh
And
wow, okay. I
yeah,
went in
I
as blind as
yeah,
possible. The only thing I knew was just the nonlinear um aspect
right. No,
of the film itself.
I had the movie spoiled for me. So, all right, yeah. So all right, so we could talk about it. So yeah, it's you know, the lady, right? And she meets a man, and they went to have some, well, for lack of a better term, some pretty rough sex, involving some hard, rough play and blah 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 blah. They use drugs, they do this, that, and then you learn. Well, she might. All I'll say, there's a Janelle Monáe reference in this. It's not really, but if you know, you know. Uh, but yeah, that's she having to deal with the man in a certain way, and her being um having to worry about the world, but then she escapes from the man, and then she meets some, like, to this old hippie couple, and I think they kind of like outside of the world, they kind of doomsday prepper types, that's what they feel, and then they have a lot of, like, back and forth violence about her nature and her having to deal with police, and then she meets up with, well, it's something with the police. That is all I'll say. And at the end, it involving a Native American. And I love this movie. I'm really mad that I had this spoiled for me. That is all I'll say. Yeah, it is the last time we see something like this was like was Gone Girl, right? That's what it feel like for me. This year had some solid, like, feminist, you know, woman, female point of view, female psychology stuff. And last time we got that was Gone Girl. Like, this year he had Blink twice. So, like, all right, yeah, and he had some, like, Woman of the Hour, right? Which I didn't, neither of those I haven't seen yet. But again, a good, it's a nice wave of decent movies. And then the next movie we'll talk about does a lot of female psychology. But yeah,
Hmm.
there's a lot of, like, solid female thriller. This was great. Again, very reminiscent of Gone Girl. Uh, just okay, what well, again, I really hate that I had a spoilers, but what a certain type of woman, how they would think and operate into the world, and if how you have to, like, get them from point A to point B while feeling plausible. And yeah, that's that. It was just, I mean, we had to talk about spoilers. We want to talk about it in any serious way, but
All right. Well, I think in this case we should keep it spoiler free, just for
right.
those who haven't seen.
But
Yeah.
yeah, what it does well, and again, I kind of already spoiled it by mentioning Gone Girl, but it does this aspect of, you know violence involving women, and how to write that, and how to make you engage and keep you engaged into the narrative, and given how characters just think and talk and aspect. And again, now if I didn't have it spoiled for me, I would have probably still kind of guessed it because of how much dialogue and how confident the character is. Usually that means something. Like, in terms of how the scene is shot and how it's framed, and it's not by accident. This is done as a way. And then the ending also is not done by accident because of who, you know does the final thing. At the ending. By the way, that sequence is cool. It's such a film student thing, but I love it. Where it goes from color to
I
black and
know
white.
I know you guys say film student the moment
No, I
I
know, yeah,
saw
and
that transition.
I hate using that term as it's fake, but
I know what.
but it totally feel like that. But it's great. It's a kind of choice
Yeah,
I
it
would make.
is. It is.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's a choice I would make. Like, it's not like something I would do. So but I
yeah.
still loved it. I actually loved it, given the nature of how it was shot later and how the film was shot, and how
Mm.
bright lit. Well, not brightly lit. How well, kind of slightly oversaturated everything felt, and then when they get into, implying, it's typical film language stuff, right? And they make it work. And so I was digging it for what it was and what they're trying to do, going forward, and it's really surprisingly smart stuff, in that way. Um, and then mostly because of where the story goes and where she goes, and then the violence involved is great too. I just had me hooked pretty much from the get go, and I thought this was really, really excellent. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Kind of loved it.
All right. So here's the thing with me and this, right? Maybe it's because I saw this right after the front row, right? This is one that I have to rewatch, and I
Right,
went in as blind as possible, right?
right.
So for me, it felt like okay, like if the director himself had pitched this to people, and they just be like, "Holy shit, this sounds like amazing. We should really make this," right? But
Yes.
then when you see it executed, it's like, "All right, okay, that's
Yeah.
it.
No.
All right,
Again,
cool."
I just
You know what I
I
mean?
get,
That
yeah.
it wasn't mind blowing for me, and I think for me it's because of the buzz, the really high level of buzz that they got, right? So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when I saw it, I thought it was gonna be some like real groundbreaking kind of like indie kind of film now. But when I
yeah,
saw, it, I was like, oh okay, well you're using certain tropes and subverting them. All right, okay, yeah, yeah, I get it. All right, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when it ends, like, oh yeah, yeah, I get it, right? But I think it's just the hype surrounding it was just way too high. So when I see it, I was like, oh okay, that's what it is. Okay, all right, cool. You know what I mean? So, um, but I feel maybe I was just drawn a little too much into the style of it, right? And you see it right from the get go with the structure of it. So they'll tell you, oh, we started at chapter this, right? Instead of like the chapter one, like you would think, oh, we should start at the very beginning. They say, nope, we're going to start somewhere in the middle, and then we're gonna go all the way back here, and then we're gonna go back there, and all that kind of stuff, right? So you see it and you know the technique, and you're like, yeah, I know this, and I know this, right?
right,
And I think for me too, because they reveal a certain thing about the protagonist, right? Which yes, it did catch me by surprise, right? And that's how that plays out was really interesting, right? Because yeah, at first you're thinking, oh, it's gonna play out like this, right? And I will give mad props to for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre inspired opening
yeah,
crawl and narration. I was like,
yeah,
all right, yeah. That's cool, right? So you're already thinking it's gonna play out like this, right? But then when the show play continues on, it's like that's actually not the case, right? So I think for me, because I was expecting it to play out slight spoiler like a slasher film or a serial killer film, and they didn't really quite do that. That was like a little that was like that's like a nitpick for me, right? But then also too, I guess this is the point of the film. I didn't really find myself liking the antagonist or protagonist at all, right? Like I think that's the point of it. Like they're just these two dark souls who trying to survive in this world, and just in the way how they are framed in the story, it's like yeah, it's all about it's kind of like survival of the fittest, but there's also kind of like a selfishness involved, like a kill or be killed kind of mindset to it, right? Which I did not expect in the film, right? But when you really think about it, it's like, yeah, like I see why you did that, but wow, I kind of hate you. I hate your character a little bit
right,
more because you did that, right? But I guess given the nature of the show, that's the point of it, right? And going back to a show that we talked about just the other day, in a of a violent, I think it's in a violent nature, right? Or
right,
of a
right, right,
violent nature. I would say that this show explores the nature of violence in a much, much, much better way, right? I mean, for one
yeah,
thing, you have dialogue for once, right? It's not as a
right.
character who can't speak, walk around killing people. He's
Yeah,
supposed to
that was
feel
more because
sick
to me
and
that's
twisted.
more that I find that more come across gimmicky because it's like, oh, right, they're just doing this, like whatever.
Yeah, it's
Like
just doing
I
Jason
couldn't get
Voorhees.
into that
That's
as
what it
much.
do.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
and making us feel sick and we'll be
right,
killing
right,
people.
right,
Well,
right.
no, right?
Yeah,
In this case, yes, the characters have a lot of depth. Actually, I'll give them that, right?
yeah,
And how it explores violence was really fasty as well, or at least the whole kill or be killed aspect of it, right? But still, for me, I just didn't like these characters at all. But then again, I guess that's the point of it, right?
yeah,
Um, but it is very, very well shot, though. I like that they literally come out and say it's shot entirely into the 5 millimeter film, right? But what
right.
was real interesting for me, right? Two things. One, the cinematography, right? Believe it or not, was done by Giovanni Ribisi.
Okay.
D. Giovanni Ribisi. I'm like, what? Like,
Natural.
do your thing, bro. Do your thing, right? I love that he does rely a lot on natural light, right? And yeah, because a majority of the film takes place in the daytime, right? So I like what he did there. Yes, there's some stuff, there's some moments where the background is kind of blown out because of the sun and the how hot it is, but it's the nature of it, right? So I like what he did there, right? Um, but what I found the whole 35 millimeter thing really interesting, right? Is that for me, if somebody didn't tell me that, right, I'd just watch this and think, oh, it was just digitally shot. Reason being is
Right.
because even though it's shot on film, yeah, there was color grading like throughout the
Yeah,
entirety of it. I picked up
yeah,
on it, I saw it, but again, it's the point that if you told me this was shot on film, I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know because of how the color grading looks in this, right?
yeah.
So
Look a
yeah.
little because, but I did that. Yeah, that was kind of workably intentional too, especially given the last shot.
Yes, yes, yes,
Right, 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 right.
exactly.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's kind of going back to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That
yeah,
sort of raw, sort of like feel to it, right? That's how it looks, right? That's what it's going for, right? Well, not in that almost, but not entirely like a documentary style, like how the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre film was, right? But that in itself, just the look of it, just that visual aesthetic, added to how you know n- visceral and raw that film was, right? And that's exactly what they're going for here, right? It's just with the color grading, it just made things look a little clean, a little too clean, but I didn't mind, right? Because the shit looked great, right? I thought that the performances by the two leads were excellent in my opinion. Willa Fitzgerald, who plays the lady, and Kyle Gallner, who plays the demon. Um,
Mhm.
they're both likable and unlikable in the same breath though. And
Yeah,
yeah, I have to give credit to both of them, even though I really found myself like just like hating them. But
yeah,
again, that's the point of the show, right? So overall, I didn't know that the show was just really designed to make me hate, well, sorry, understand the mindset of somebody that I would generally hate. Somebody who is put in a position where it's either kill or be killed. That's what it is, right?
yeah,
But
right.
yes, I do like how it sort of deconstructs the slasher film archetypes and
Exactly.
whatnot. I
That's
do
what it
like how they do that.
does so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's the part of it that holds me. It's like it is real smart too. Like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
yeah.
way, it's a surprisingly smarter script than people give it credit for. I think it's smarter than I think a lot of people gonna give it credit for. But I thought it was just like it had something to say in terms of violence. It subverts the
Yes, yes.
material. And again, I'm really mad that I had this spoiled for me in terms of who
Right.
doing what. But that is about it. And
Yeah.
if I was trying to think of how would I guess where it'll go, but I wouldn't have guessed where it'll go. I don't think I would. And that kind of take away from it. But whatever.
Mm,
I just dug
yeah.
how this was executed. Too.
Yeah, me too. But for me, I sort of found myself finding it more style and substance though.
Okay,
But I feel
yeah,
like
no, yeah,
if I
I
just
understand that.
watch it
Yeah,
over, if I just watch it over and I focus more on the substance, because I was more taken in the style and okay, you're just subverting the serial killer trope. Okay,
right,
all
right, right,
right.
right,
So I was more looking at it from a substance point of view, right? Sorry,
right,
from a style point of view and not a substance, right? Even right down to the way how the film is structured, is like, all right, okay, I see what you're doing there. Okay, all right,
right.
yeah, yeah, right. But I feel like if I just watch it again, I'll be like, oh, that's where you're getting at. Oh,
Yeah.
so there's a meaning behind the madness. There's a meaning behind the violence and the violent acts. Okay, I get what you're coming from. All right, I get
But
right.
is the last shot, not the last shot, and I put this shot in quotes, right?
Uh huh. Uh huh.
um, right. That is where I felt where it had something to say interesting because it is who involved with the violence
Yes.
and is who do it. And then I was like, okay, I kind of something interesting here because the question, a big part of this is the benefit of the doubt, right?
Right. You're right. Yeah.
Certain people, certain people just get away with bullshit, right?
Uh huh. Uh
this
huh. yeah.
this movie and when certain other people see the situation, it immediately like trigger a red flag in the person. And that's what that
Yes.
happened. And I don't think that, look, that again, I'm sure in some interview they might say otherwise, but I thought that's what they was trying to see. Like
Mm.
that's why, and again, it feeded little film student, film with his film studies, essay bullshit,
Yeah.
right? But I'll say it. That's how it felt. Like that's why I read it. Like
Right.
again, I don't want to spoil the movie, but like, yeah, there's a good ending. Like this
Yeah,
works in
no,
it.
no, the
Yeah,
ending, what we'll say, right?
yeah,
That's a closer, right? The ending will stand out though. Like I
yeah,
am still remembering that. As far as the music goes, wasn't really fancy on
yeah. It wasn't
the sort
special,
of
right?
folk
Agreed,
rock, yeah, the
agreed.
sort of alt rock music. Like
Yeah,
I know it's all original music, but just not my cup of tea to be honest. But
right.
it
Well, yeah,
when it fit it didn't work, right? But
yeah,
yeah, and I know I was getting out with this, but yes, this is a type of show where there are moments, there are visual moments that will stick with you. Like it's designed that okay, we're gonna have these moments, so you'll be talking about these things. You may not like the film, but you'll remember this and you'll be talking about it afterwards. And yeah, there were numerous moments like that in the film, right? So for me, rating wise, at the moment, I will give this a very light 3.5 out of 5. It's worth checking out, right?
yeah,
Um, but I feel like if I just watch it again and focus less on the style because I know the style and I know what they're doing and more the substance, I think that I'll enjoy this film even more, right? But yeah, it lives up to the hype, even though there's a lot of hype and rightfully so, right? Yeah, you know what I mean. But this is a show that is designed to be divisive as well, right? Some people might think that it's all style, it's all about the well. With this slight spoiler, it's taking the final girl trope and just exploring that, right? That's what it
right,
is,
right,
right?
right, right, right,
But it
right,
has,
right.
but yeah, that's what it is.
Right.
That's what it
Yeah,
is, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, so while in a violent nature was more about the killer and the
right,
mindset of the killer, well, or lack thereof, this one is the final girl, right? The mindset of the final girl. That's what
right.
really what it is, right? But there's substance, right? It's just I didn't pick up on it in the first viewing, But I feel like if I just watch it again and maybe a couple more times, I'll be like, all right, now I see where Ricardo's coming from with the Gone Gill comparison. I see we getting at here right now. Where he getting at, right? But yeah, it's worth checking out. It really is worth checking out, right? And yeah, I mean, we didn't really call out the director, GT Molnar.
Right.
Damn impressive film, though. I will give him
Yeah.
that. Damn impressive film, right? See, Ricardo, your final thoughts and rating.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this, even though it was spoiled for me, and I sure I enjoyed way more if it wasn't. But yeah, I just really dug what it did here. It's actually it's a straightforward concept of a subversion, but I'm surprised we haven't gotten more of this. And I really wish we get more movies like this because, like, yeah, how come we can get this in a hot minute? Like, I tried out some movie from the 90s or somebody from the 80s who did it before, but this was like really like surprisingly smart and subversive for way to trying to do and say. And I dug the hell out of it. I just had a lot of fun with it. Again, not some big amazing masterpiece, just a solid conceit. And again, you make the comparison to the Violent Nature. Yeah, I think it does that, but so much better than what that did. I find that was just kind of more that felt more style over substance. But this I thought had something interesting to do and see for its conceit. Mostly because of the dialogue and it fills in that conceit really well. And so yeah, I rated yeah again like a 8 out of 10. I dug the hell out of it.
Right. Nice, nice, nice. And last but not least, a show that I want to see so bad because of how so many people have been praising this, right?
Right.
The Substance.
Sure.
I can't even do a preamble because I just all I know is that people just loving this movie and I hear it's all
Well,
sorts of fucked up. But
yeah, well, no, yeah,
at the same time, right? So I'll close it. At the same time, right? Because what I wanted to do, similar to how this section of this episode is, I want to do a feature. So started with Front Room, then Strange Darling, and then close with what I assume is the best of the three, right? The Substance, right?
right,
But I did not get the time, unfortunately. So
right,
yeah,
unfortunately.
I know that if I had seen this right after Strange Darling, I would have loved this movie, right? But unfortunately, this didn't get a
Probably, yeah.
chance, right? But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. The
Sure.
Substance. What's
Right, well,
about?
you should have some pre-ramble for this because it's the same director of a little film that we reviewed back in 2017 called Revenge.
Yes,
Remember that?
which I
Uh,
absolutely enjoyed,
Yeah,
right?
which
Yeah.
kicked a lot of ass and was great.
Yes.
And yeah, this director, yeah, she's my kind of gal, right? She just absolutely nails just how to get crazy and wild.
Yeah.
And boy, this movie taps it, and I think it's a direct reference to one of my favorite movies. And an incredibly, let's admit it, an incredibly fucked up movie. That's to show where my mind is go sometimes. But I don't want to. If I say this, I won't spoil it. But yeah, I don't know how many people see this movie. Yeah, it's a big homage to Society, if you remember that from
I
1988.
knew
So
you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say
yeah,
Society. Yes.
yep,
So for those who don't know, not gonna say what it is, but when it comes to body horror, and when it
yes,
comes to 80s practical effects in horror movies,
yeah,
this shit is insane.
yeah.
But you should watch it though. You should watch
Yeah,
it. You should watch it.
wild
Yeah.
as hell. And yeah, so that's what the substance is about. And yes, another very very feminist film. Because originally when I saw this movie, I thought it was the director of if you know Raw and Titanic or Titanic.
Or you thought it
I,
was her. Which
I
is
know it
funny
was her.
because both directors are French. Look at
Right.
that,
I
right?
know it was
Yeah.
her. And I was confused with that, but I'm like, no, it's what to do is what to do revenge. Like, oh shit, right, that was hard too.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so
Oh,
what
and
it's
I should
about.
mention too, this is actually her second feature, bro.
Right, yeah.
The
It
second,
take
you
a while.
know.
Yeah. It take
What?
a while. It take a while to do it. They
Yeah.
do a good job with it. And
Not a real thread.
yeah, what this is about. So it's a nice why this works so well is because of how well it's kind of metatextual. I would imagine this kind of hits close to home to who the main actress is, right? Um, so yeah, it's about Demi Moore, right, playing this actress called Elizabeth Sparkle, and she's like a kind of Jane Fonda like VHS fitness show type person. So how toned and amazing the body is, and blah blah blah, blah. And it's in that vein, right? That vein of just looking sharp on her thing. But it's not in the 80s, it's now. But it's her body. But sorry, she getting kind of old, right? She pushing 50, and the powers that be almost entirely men actually, who running everything. This is played great by this Dennis Quaid, right? Dennis Quaid plays a gross ass character in this. He
Oh wow, I
all
didn't
I'll
know
tell
he
you,
was in this. Wow.
yeah. All you'll need to know is that he does something just like oh gosh, remember Return of the King when he do those eating all the thing? It's
Or
like
the
that.
The grips. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gross shit.
Oh, okay,
You have something
okay.
like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's basically just her having she aging out, time to get rid of she, they plan to get rid of she. And she stumbled upon a conversation about that. I'm not spoiling anything yet, right? And then she gets contact with somebody who just gives her something called the substance. It's not they don't know who it is or what she does kind of thing. But in her desperation, she decides to take the substance, and then the substance allows her to, and again, not spoiling anything, but this is the beginning of the movie. She basically figures out a way to create like a younger, like almost like a copy of herself, right? Like a kind of almost like a kind of like mitosis, like it's just a cell splitting. Because they do that in the beginning with her early image. So it's this drug off the market that she takes, and it allows her to split into two. But what has happened is that if you it gives you rules now, kind of like Gremlins, right? Where if you don't do this and you have to take a week and you can't fuck around with it, and both the clone and you are two separate people. It's not like you have any control over what's going on with the copy. So the copy don't want to live with you, but you have to eat a certain type of food and you have to feed the clone the substance, and you have to do all these rules. And basically how the whole thing is set up like a big moral hazard to basically break them rules. And that is exactly what happened. Both of them break rules in their own way, what they do with it and why um certain things happen in terms of the thing, and that is where it goes. I don't want to spoil anything else because this is get fucking wild. This movie, this movie is get real wild, and it has something to say. Again, another great like smart. I really wish I watched this because I just wanted to like gush about how fucking gross and hilarious this was at parts. It just balances horror with actual like emotion. It has a little bit of heart at parts. Margaret Qualley is great in this. She had a real strong year this year. She has a lot of really good, great growth roles this year coming up as an actress. And then yeah, I can imagine it also makes reference to Demi Moore as an actress, right? Demi Moore, was she was old like 20 years ago. You can remember they made a big fucking deal about her coming back in Charlie's Angels 2 or some shit like that. Right? And what Demi
Yeah,
Moore
she
had
was in that. Yes, yes, yes.
and back then, that was what, close to 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. Back then, um they was hyping how, oh well, look how good she looking for her age. And she was like what, in her 40s by then. So she's what, close in she's in 60s now. Um and look, Demi also looking good. Like I'd say no. But yeah, they best make that conceit really, really well. And they put this together in such a bizarre way. And it's get wild. As I said, it gets wild. And what they do with it really well is again all of the horror scenarios about the idea of the body and the idea of the how you feel about your body, how you feel about your mind, how you should be treated, where how society treats women, how society looks upon women. Especially when once you cross a certain number, one of my favorite like that. Remember that famous Batman episode with the model who's just she crossed 30 and that was it, and
Yeah. Mm.
she was hiding her face, and you think she had a scarred face, but when she you pull off the mask, it's like, oh no, nothing wrong with your face. She just above 30. Like that is it. Like that's the thing. And it is this, but they frame it in such a great existential horror in this. And again, when they get into the body horror, they get into the body horror. It has some real, like some stuff look like crappy old like rubber nonsense, and you laugh at that. And they did take you out of the movie because it makes sense why it would look like that. And then other stuff look just fucking gross. It look like stuff squeezed out of the body because they do a lot of that, like stuff just not working, and how things might happen in this way, and what you know how the body will like spit out things, and especially when they get older, all this gross material like exited out the body, and they just get into that part of the body horror. And that part is just, yeah, you gotta watch yourself and keep yourself clean and so on. So, and they make it really work. And then where it goes in terms of like who breaking rules and why at the end, and then the ending is just saddest, most depressing fucking thing you've seen in a while. But it's really good. This more like you also gonna make a best of the year for me. Yeah, I just really thoroughly love this. I thought it was like genuinely funny. At the same time, it balanced heart but humor and body horror and all the other ideas about something to do with commentary about society and women and how we treat old people. Not so it's not just feminism but also ageism, and that aspect of it, and how we treat older people in general and that kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. And boy, is giving a wild ride. I thoroughly recommend this. This will more than likely make a top five of the year for me. I'll probably right now rating. I will probably give this like a 9 out of 10. I don't want to spoil it.
Nice.
Go into it. All I'll say, you should probably skip lunch before you see it. That's all I'll say. It is get wild. It is
I
very
was
wild.
I was planning to eat. I was planning to eat while I watched that.
Yeah. I can eat that, after I'll eat it and then hope you think about it and then I can put on my gyro, right? But that's about it. Yeah, I thoroughly loved it. It's genuinely funny and really well done, but it escalates in really interesting ways. But when it gets dark and sad, it's really dark and sad. Like what it do with certain parts. And Demi Moore really holds it together. Like she's so good in this, because it's pitch black and funny at parts. Um, but it that black dark humor just balances well. It's such a great script. I thoroughly love this. Yeah, I recommend it strongly, highly recommend the Substance rated. Yeah, I give this like I'll also give it an 8 out of 10, but probably closer to a 9. Like I actually give this a higher score than um the previous movie we watched, right? I'm Straight Jargon.
Right.
But I I just think this comes together so well, and it's like wow, this just well done. Yeah, and it's who these characters act off of and how they bounce off each other and where it goes and just the all the conceits and pressure and how it's shot. There's a kind of like a claustrophobia to the whole thing that really really works and comes together really well. And yeah, this is just excellent stuff. Yeah, highly recommend. Yeah, the substance is the substance has the substance, as they say. This is definitely more. This is definitely substance over style, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended. We don't know.
Nice.